Today, we're going to be speaking about perfectionism. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be destroying the misconceptions about perfectionism. We have to be perfectionists in everything that we do. No, we don't. We can be a perfectionist in one thing that we dedicate our time and energy to. What that thing is, it really depends on you. It's because when we tie our identity to anything, whether it's perfectionism, a role, a career, a job, something, we actually impact the way that we might feel if there's any disassociation, detachment, exit, end to that phase. And I've witnessed that as well on a personal level. We are so much more than that. These are just behaviors and skills. Understanding that enables us to be able to distance ourselves when it matters most. And the third and final point is that Welcome to Present Potential. I'm your host, Hassan, and the reason I launched this podcast is to create a ripple effect of optimism that reaches 1 billion people in the next decade. Ambitious? Very. Scary? A little bit. The aim of Present Potential is to empower listeners by sharing stories of individuals who've turned challenges into opportunities, proving that we all have untapped potential. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. If you've tuned in before, thank you for your support, and I hope you find value in these conversations. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Present Potential. I'm your host, Hassan, and I'm so thankful and grateful for everyone for tuning in to these episodes on a weekly basis. Today, we're going to be speaking about perfectionism. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be destroying the misconceptions about perfectionism, because people say that perfectionism hold us back, that they impede us from our productivity and our performance. While on the other hand, we tend to feel like we want to do even more so that we become the best versions of ourselves. As you can see, I'm already making mistakes, so I am not perfect. And as always, these are authentic. They're pre-recorded, but there's no editing, so I don't read a script. The only script that I have is actually this piece of paper, which has 3 points that I'm going to be sharing with you. Now, before we begin, I wanted to let you know that today is the 27th of March, and this is going to be out on the 1st or 2nd of April. On that date, I'm also going to be releasing The Hub. This is going to be the place where I want to tell you, but I'm not going to tell you. It's going to include a lot of interesting things, I think, for me, maybe for others as well. But anyways, mark your calendars, because that day is when this hub will go live. And if you're subscribed to my Momentum letters, you're going to be notified. And also, you already kind of have access to this because you've tested it and you've provided me with feedback. And if you're not part of Momentum letters, then join us. That said, let's get into the episode today. Perfectionism. When I hear perfectionism, I think about doing something repeatedly, consuming a lot of our time and effort without end. That's my definition. There's no end in sight. Now, when I describe it in that way, it can really apply to anything. For example, when I see my daughter coloring or drawing or painting or something, she has a tendency to want to make every single drawing as perfect as possible. So she has this perfectionism in her that whenever she's drawing, and if I'm looking down and imagining that I'm writing something, and if you're listening to this, I'm actually holding a pencil and looking down. But what I'm imagining is her looking at a piece of paper and slowly moving her hand so that she can grab the most interesting aspect of her drawings. Yesterday, for example, she was studying. She was doing her homework with her mother. And her homework is basically just rewriting words from a book that she chooses from school. She's 5.5. And it's that discipline that she has that she wants to study and do homework. Nothing else. We don't really force her, but we ask her if she wants to do it. Anyways, that aside, so she was sitting and she had her notebook, and she usually likes to make lines on her blank piece of paper notebook and write words on them. So she was writing a word and then there was a mistake. So she would erase it and write it again. And then she would erase it and then she would write it again until eventually I can hear her mother saying, "What are you doing?" And she was starting to sound a little bit frustrated. What my daughter was trying to do is to do the best that she can at that moment. Now, am I the best judge to say if it was the right time for her to express her perfectionism or not? I don't know. If you ask my wife, probably it's not. But the point is that we all go through these, whether it's at home, whether we're kids, whether we're in the office as well, when we want to finalize a project, a presentation, a meeting that we're going to, whether it's a service that we're providing or a product, even when we are creating something like a when people create things like the phones that we use or the telephones or tables or something that they really dedicate their time and effort to make it to the best of their ability. Now, why am I talking about perfectionism? Still, I'm not able to say it properly. I've come across a lot of different content on social media saying that perfectionism is the worst thing and it's an indication of some mental illness, or that it's going to stop us from becoming the best versions of ourselves because, let's face it, nothing is perfect. But we strive to be perfect and then it holds us back from actually publishing or producing the work that we want to produce. That is not true. At least in my point of view, I don't believe that perfectionism is an inhibitor of our performance. Actually, the best performers are perfectionists. Give me an example of someone who is at their top of their game, someone who is the best in their industry, masters of their craft, who are not perfectionists, who do not strive to improve 1% at a time over the years to become the best version of themselves. Name me one, honestly, because I am not able to find a person like that. I'm going to share a short story with you about someone who is a perfectionist, in my point of view, and also from others who have told him so, or at least that's what I heard. I'm sure that you know Michael Jackson. I mean, my grandmother used to know Michael Jackson. Everyone knows Michael Jackson, so let's not get into that. Michael Jackson was one of the best performers, entertainers ever. The music that he made, the dancing, the skits, the choreography that he made. I mean, people still dance to Thriller to today, and that was released over 30 years ago. I mean, it's impressive how much of a lasting impact he has made on the music industry and also on everything, really, from dancing to music to being perfect. Now, why am I sharing Michael Jackson with you? The reason being is Michael Jackson wasn't one of the best performers because he was gifted. I mean, you can argue that he was gifted, but I would argue that he was completely skilled in what he was doing and that he used to devote all his energy and passion to that single craft ever since he was 5 year old. Even from before that, he would practice religiously, dancing, rehearsing, and improving his footsteps to make it as perfect as possible. Now, there are stories of his backup dancers and the people that were around him that said he would dance every night before a show up until 3 a.m., practicing the move to make it as perfect as possible. It goes to the extent that he was also very delicate about the way that he looked, what he dressed, how he moved, and also his body, because it's all part of the performance. It's all important to have that 1% additional improvement in anything to become the best version of himself. And if you haven't seen any of his music lately, I encourage you to do so, because in almost all of his concerts, his dance steps are completely transformational. I mean, when you see him dancing next to his backup dancers and the people around him, he just completely blows them out of the water. Why am I sharing this with you? Because he was a perfectionist. And because of his perfectionism, he was able to improve the way that he delivers his craft so that we can enjoy it. And that's the most important thing that we do, is to enjoy it, because he dedicated the time, effort, and energy. Now, was he a perfectionist in all aspects of his life? Absolutely not. None of us are. We're not perfect. We are perfectly imperfect. The universe is imperfect. Everything revolves in a certain way that is, it looks imperfect. There are craters in the moon. It's not perfect. But together, it is perfect. The universe works because of how it is created in essence. Now, I'm getting a little bit off point here, but my point is that he was a perfectionist in his craft. Maybe in other things, not really. So that's the point. I wanted to break one of the misconceptions is that we have to be perfectionists in everything that we do. No, we don't. We can be a perfectionist in one thing that we dedicate our time and energy to. What that thing is, it really depends on you. It could be something at work, it could be a project, it could be even brushing your teeth. It could be anything. Now, assuming if you brush your teeth, of course. But that's the point that I'm making. It really depends on the time and also the task that you're performing. For example, if I'm going to draw a balloon or a snowman for my daughters, I might not spend countless hours and refining the strokes to make it as perfect as possible. Because, to be honest, any improvement further than what is needed at that point in time, which, let's be honest, as a parent, you know that some of the things do end up in the trash, there's no point to do that much effort. But if you ask me if I want to perfect my coaching approach, presence, and energy, then yes. And that's exactly what I do. I reflect on every single coaching session. After every coaching session, I dedicate at least 15 to 30 minutes to reflecting on my own performance, to understand what did I do well so that I can do even more about that. What could I do even better next time or that I missed so I can learn to remember to do that during the coaching session or improve in the next time. And also, most importantly, this is something that we all fail to do is to acknowledge the wins. So I also recognize the things that I do perfectly well. Perfectly well, obviously, in my definition of the world. But I want to also acknowledge what it is that I did well. So I pat myself on the back to understand that this is great. And I continue doing that. So first is that breaking this misconception that we're all perfect all the time. And if we're a perfectionist, then it's all the time. That's the misconception. It's depending on when you want. Now, in order to become more aware of this, I invite you to remind yourself of asking yourself whatever it is that you're doing. You can say, am I using my time more efficiently doing this? Am I gaining any new insights? And what am I giving up? These are the three questions. Am I gaining anything by doing more? Am I learning something while I'm doing it? And what am I giving up? These are the three questions that I ask myself whenever I do any task to understand whether it's worth it or not. Because let's face it, our time is finite, and finding exactly what we want to do is perfect. Now, I'm not saying to do things mindlessly. I'm actually saying to do it mindfully, to be completely concentrated there, but in order to improve anything by even that 1%, to know exactly what we're doing. I hope it makes sense. Now, the second point that I want to share with you is to completely shatter the misconception that I'm a perfectionist. Not me, but like the phrase, I'm a perfectionist. That phrase on its own, when we repeat it to ourselves, I'm a perfectionist, is actually creating an identity that underlines that perfectionism. When I tell myself that I'm a perfectionist, if I make a mistake, if I show you this paper, I don't know if you can see it, it's not very clear, but this is not perfect at all. But if I kept telling myself that I am a perfectionist, this imperfection in the paper would have created a lot of explosions in my mind because it doesn't match the identity that I have created for myself, where I believed that I am a certain type of person, of whom I am as a perfectionist. Now, this goes along the same thing in anything, whether we say that I am happy or I am sad, I am diabetic, I am angry, I am not good, I am the best. These phrases and the way that we enunciate them indicate that it is creating our identity. And we are not these things. We are so much more. And we are so much more. The point is, saying that we are a perfectionist kind of already reprograms our minds to believe that it's some sort of identity. And that's not true. Now, I think it's important to distinguish or to become aware of when we say these things, because let's face it, if we say that I'm a perfectionist, if we know that we are not a perfectionist, but we're just saying it for the purpose of communicating with others, then I would do that, because my aim is to be as clear as possible in any communication that I make. And I hope that I'm being clear here. But if I'm not, then I'm sorry. It's the best that I can do for the moment. Now, what I wanted to share with you in terms of like an identity of someone who's a perfectionist is a Formula One racing car, Formula One racing driver. Is it Formula One racing car driver? You know, the cars that go around circuit very fast, Formula One. So, one of my favorite drivers ever, and I think he is the best driver ever, and I think in the eyes of other Formula One drivers, was Ayrton Senna. Now, if you don't know Ayrton Senna, I really encourage you to watch documentaries about him or read about him, because he was just pure genius in his driving. And I watched recently some documentaries on Formula One. And in one of those documentaries, the person that was sharing a story was telling us about an event that took place with Senna. And this really stood out for me because he was an absolute perfectionist when he was driving those cars. The story goes that I think this was in the Indy 500 or somewhere in the States, and it wasn't a Formula One race, but they were racing smaller vehicles, or I think even just a normal vehicle, not a Formula One vehicle. They were racing those vehicles, Ayrton Senna and other different Formula One drivers. Now, Ayrton was such a perfectionist that he can bring the car to millimeters as close as possible to any barrier, especially when he's going around curves. Now, he went through a lap, and then in the second or third, or I don't know which lap, he actually hit the barrier. And when they asked him how come he hit the barrier, he told them the barrier actually moved. Now, when I heard this, I was like, wow, this guy is really, really focused and sharp in terms of like the angles, and I wonder what he meant. But apparently, there had been a small accident before his lap, and the barrier moved. It shifted by a few millimeters. So when he was driving, based on his angles and his assessment, he knew the exact angle that he had to go, but because the barrier moved slightly, he ended up hitting it. Now, why am I sharing this with you? He was a perfectionist, and you can hear him and say that I am a professional racing driver. He embodied that identity. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. And that's kind of also what I wanted to bring to your attention, because during his last races, they were asking him, why don't you quit? Why don't you stop? And he used to say, I can't. I'm not able to stop. And what I believe is that his identity has become who he is. And if he was separated from that, then he was going to be wondering, who is he? Because it's become one and the same, completely aligned in everything that he does. And that's the message that I want to share with you today. The second message, actually. It's because when we tie our identity to anything, whether it's perfectionism, a role, a career, a job, something, we actually impact the way that we might feel if there's any disassociation, detachment, exit, end to that phase. And I've witnessed that as well on a personal level. I've been an investment advisor for more than 15 years of my life. I used to be an investment advisor. When I used to introduce myself, I would tell people that I am an investment advisor. So when I left, that really created a void within me, because I felt like I was losing a part of me to that. But it wasn't a part of me. It was just something that I did. It was the behaviors, skills, and mindset that I had that carried me throughout that career journey. So this is what I also invite you to do, is to become aware of where we use these terms of I am so and so. I am a perfectionist, because that kind of already reprograms our subconscious mind to understand that if I don't get this as perfect as possible, then I am not a perfectionist, and it goes against my values, identity, and belief, which is destroying us. That's the second message that I wanted to share with you. Now, the third message about perfectionism is that, well, Let's recap. First, we said it's about becoming aware the time and the energy, what we're focusing on, and whether it's worth it to dedicate our energy to perfecting that task. That's the first message. The second message is that we are not perfectionists, that we are not something. It's not an identity that we hold, but it's a skill. It's a habit that we build that we can continue to cultivate throughout the things that we do. Thirdly, and last story that I wanted to share with you about perfectionism is that it's part of us. And becoming aware of how much perfectionism we want to have is also important. Let's take a product, for example, the iPhone. Now, I'm sure that you know the iPhone. If you don't, then I don't know where you live. But when it was designed, Steve Jobs wanted to make sure that it was one of the most beautiful designed products ever. And it's almost the same for almost all products from Apple. It's because they design them with such intricate detail to make them aesthetically pleasing to encourage us to buy them. And we do buy them, and I use them. And they're great. They do the function, but they're also, for me, I find them very beautiful. And I'm happy to pay a little bit premium on them. As you can see, they're great. And I think this is also the message that I wanted to share, is that it depends what we're focusing our energy on, whether we're giving it to someone. If it's a product or a service that we are actually creating to give to other people, it's so important for us to know where we want to focus our energy. And the best way for me to illustrate this is really to share how we can measure the range of perfectionism in anything that we do. Let's say if you go to a restaurant and the chef says, I'm going to make food for you. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best meal that you're ever going to have, 1 is going to be probably you're going to end up in hospital. Now, most of us would tend to want to be at the higher end of the scale because we want the best food. We want something that tastes great, that is nourishing, that we enjoy it. And we definitely don't want something on the end of the scale. Anything in the middle is actually the average, the normal, something that we can get by with, but it doesn't really leave a lasting impression. It doesn't create that emotion that enables us to come back for more. That's where we want to focus our energy, depending what we want to serve. If a chef is able to find the ingredients that are to the best of his ability and also the highest quality and cooks them to perfection, as perfection can be defined, for the certain aspect of any role that they're doing, they would probably be at the higher end of that scale. Now, why am I sharing this with you? It's because what you bring into your product ends up on the other side. Anything that you bring in impacts the quality out. And that's what perfectionism is as well, to a certain extent, if you know what I mean. It's what we would find in terms of the raw material that we put together to create the product. If iPhones were beautifully designed, but were made out of plastic, that would completely defy the purpose of their design. If a car was built from glass and it's so shiny and pretty, it might not be safe enough. And it's going to be maybe rather heavy as well to drive around. And that's what's important about perfectionism. The things that we bring in. If it's not a product, if it's a service, it is our energy and mindset that we cultivate before we provide that service that make us the best versions of ourselves. Now, that's so important to mention. And because it ties in with the energy that we bring. Let's say, for example, if we are going into a meeting, if we're in a company, and usually I work with executives and I provide high performance coaching. So this is really what I focus on. If someone goes into a meeting and they haven't prepared for that meeting, as perfect as they can be during that meeting, they would still lack. They would still not be as the best version of themselves. Or if they go into the meeting and they do not provide any type of indication that they're interested or show active listening, they might also not be the best versions of themselves. Now, imagine that that person goes to a client meeting and they have prepared something that they want to bring to the client. And also like that preparation, let's say it's a one document and it has been prepared very carefully. Now, maybe there's colors on that document. You can spend a lifetime choosing the colors of that document. But at the end, you must trust yourself that you've done the best for that time in that space to complete that document. Now, this is perfectionism within perfectionism. Then you take that document into that meeting, which has been prepared to the best of your ability, and present it to the person in front of you with all energy and communication to combine it to provide the best type of service. Now I'm talking and sharing lots of words like best and perfectionism, but I hope that you understand what I mean. It's those ingredients that we bring in. The best Formula One cars have the best machines, the best designers, the best engineers, the best fuel that takes them from one place to the next. The best shoes as well, like they're created from the best quality of material. It's this that makes a difference as well. What we bring in to make any task or any aspect of our lives perfect depends what we bring into it. So, if we were to wrap up today's discussion about perfectionism, first is that when someone says perfectionism is going to kill productivity and nobody should be a perfectionist, I think that is a complete waste of time and it is non-productive because from the people that we see that are the greatest, they are actually always striving to become that 1% better. So, first takeaway is whether the task that you're doing is important to be perfect. And you ask yourself the three questions. If it's the time it's the time and the energy that I'm spending in this creating more service with it. Am I gaining any insights while I'm doing it? And what am I giving up for this? It's so important to have those awarenesses. The second point was not labeling ourselves as an identity of whatever it is that we're doing. We are not perfectionists. We are not a behavior. We are not an emotion. We are not an object. We are so much more than that. These are just behaviors and skills. Understanding that enables us to be able to distance ourselves when it matters most. And the third and final point is that anything that we bring in to the task that we do will generally have the outcome, the output that is also matching what we brought in. The better the ingredients, the better the food. The better the cheese, the tastier the margarita. Now that I'm talking about food, I'm actually starting to feel a little bit hungry because I'm fasting and it is the last week of the holy month. And I wanted to share with you just one more thing that while I've been fasting this month, I haven't changed my routine very much. The only things that I have changed were not working out in the morning. Now, for those of you who don't know, the holy month of Ramadan is not just about abstaining from food and drink, but it's also a moment of reflection and to go inwards to understand what it is that is really important in our lives and to be grateful and to connect with one another and to support each other, to build that community, to be together in the things that we do that matter the most. When I've been preparing for this and other podcasts, and also during the whole month when I'm doing everything to the best of my ability, there were times when I was so exhausted and feeling sleepy. But I reminded myself that everything that I'm doing is so important. And what can I do a little bit more to make it 1% better? And that 1%, it's really subjective. It's what you feel. And this is what I do. And every time that I record a podcast, I learn more. I get to experience the best things in me and also understand what I can improve further. And I share some of the knowledge that I've come across as well. So that's the message that I want to leave you with is that it's so important to believe in yourself because if you don't, then why would others? I hope that you found value in this episode. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them. Please like, please subscribe and follow us and engage with the content as well, because I'd love to have these discussions. It's a platform for us to be able to echo the optimism that we want in the world to make it a better place for all of us. Thank you once again. And as always, remember that today is the most important day of your life. Until next time. Thank you for watching and listening to Present Potential. If you found value in this episode, please give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more. Join the conversation in the comments and let us know your biggest takeaway. If you'd like to listen to other inspiring stories, check out our other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Make sure to also follow us on Instagram under Present Potential Podcast, where you get to see behind the scenes and engage with us.